Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I'm Anita, the President of MIASA and your host for today's chat session. Welcome to the Game Changer. And as usual, this week we will be spotlighting individuals that have done tremendous work for change, creating impact, and also unique, inspiring in their own ways. And today, joining us in our studio, we have with us Sister Ellisha Othman and also Brother Syazwan Rahimy Mokhtar. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to share a little bit of their background. We will be talking about transforming communities for inclusion, turning struggles into impact. And Sister Ellisha is a clinical psychologist at Thrive Well, a trauma-informed community mental health social enterprise. And prior to a career in psychology, she pursued a career in the area of corporate finance. So she comes from the corporate world as well. And then trained as a clinical psychologist. Prior to that, she was with Souls Health and is currently the managing director of Thrive Well. And Ellisha is also a strong advocate of her profession and has served as the honorary treasurer from 2017 to 2019 with the Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology and is currently the vice president of the recently formed National Advocacy of Mental Health Association. In addition, she is active in various mental health advocacy groups and advising universities on trauma-informed mental health curriculum and practices, which we will talk about today as well. Thank you very much, Sister Ellisha, for being with us. And a little bit about Brother Syazwan Rahimy Mokhtar, who is currently the political secretary of our Minister of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, a mouthful, YB Tuan Nik Nazmi bin Nik Ahmad. And before assuming his role, he was the CEO of Maaedicare, a charitable foundation, and also he held the position of the general manager of the Lost Food Project, another non-profit organization. And also he has served as the State Exco policy advisor and has professional experience in sectors such as the capital market and automotive industry, particularly in communications. Thank you so much, Brother Syazwan, for being with us today. And on behalf of all Malaysians, thank you so much, guys, for all the good work that you guys have done and continue to do serving the community. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get started, everyone. So Sister Ellisha, we would like to begin with you. So how and when did your interest in psychology begin, and which part of it do you find most meaningful, and which one do you enjoy most? If you can share with the audience.
Right. I don't remember a starting point in my life that I became interested in psychology. But I think growing up, I've always been exposed to people from different backgrounds and culture. So came that interest in humans, in general, behavior, the way they think. But I think specifically, I would like to just highlight a point in my life in university when I was, struggling with my mental health issues without realizing it. And I think that's the point where, it really struck home in the sense that, I went to first week of university. I came much later because my dad had surgery. So 1 week later, went to the housing office. I put the application way early on, but because I came much later, they didn't have a housing for me, and I literally had a meltdown in the office. And the housing officer just said, hey, calm me down, gave me a cup of tea, typical Aussie style, and just said, hey love, I don't know what's going on, but this must be something more than just about housing. Let me see what I can help, put your waiting list, ask me all the practical things like, do you have a friend that you can stay with at least while we're sort out the waiting list for you? And then the life-changing thing that she did was then she said, you know what, as university students, especially international students, everybody struggles, right? Perhaps it would be good if you talk to somebody about this journey, and clearly there's something that you would benefit from. And she, literally said, I can make an appointment for you with, our university counselling. It's part of your tuition fees. It's free, accessible, and all of the students access it. So at that point, I realized that, wow, that psychology is one thing about human behavior, but it also affects me, not just about other people, right? And that's when it actually challenged my own perception, because I remember there was like, why is this woman telling me I'm crazy or something or whatever?
There's something wrong with me, right?
But there was something wrong. I was crying in the housing officer's office, like making a scene there. So there was something wrong, clearly. But how this woman, this housing officer just made that calm conversation And
that it's okay, right?
that it's okay. It's okay to feel this way, and there are things that you can do. So one part is the practical solution that she gave. The other part is really, what you need, in terms of
That
your
support, right?
yeah, support, emotional need. And I think that really changed my perception of psychology. And it took me a while, obviously, to pursue the career in mental health. But that one incident
Was enough.
It was enough for me to make that that change. That hey, psychology is not just an interest, but it's something that I want to pursue. Yeah.
Nice. And here we are today, and here you are today doing this.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Sister Ellisha. Maybe Brother Syazwan, first of all, congratulations on this new role. How has it been for you?
Super busy. It's a big ministry. A boss, two ministry combined into one. So
Right.
there's a lot to learn, and of course a lot of people to engage and meet up, and but it's been fun. It's been fun to what that is.
2 months, yeah? Okay. So what keeps you busy these days? What is that like for you?
I think if anything, it's work.
It's work. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, pick up. Of course, I have kids, so I send my kids to school and everything. But
Right.
From then on, it's just work until late in the evening, perhaps. Because there's a lot of engagement, we've been meeting a lot of people.
Of course.
Meetings after meetings. At the same time, I'm also still, running this foundation I'm attached to right now, currently, Maaedicare Charitable Foundation.
Right.
At least until the end of this month.
Right.
So I'm
Juggling.
Yeah, juggling two jobs at the same time. But
Right.
it's I'm transitioning into it.
Of course.
Setting to different
Yep.
roles as well. So and with being a political secretary, there's a lot of people that you have to meet. You have to cover certain grounds that the minister probably cannot cover, and
Of
so on.
course.
So so there's a lot of that as well.
Right.
But it's a learning curve. This is something that I'm kind of used to throughout my journey in my career and life and so on. But I'm just enjoying it the moment.
Right. So what made you decide on making that shift or that move?
I think it's just at one point you just have to ask yourself, what can you do? How can you contribute more
Okay.
to the society, to the country, perhaps? And I feel that this is a national duty that I just cannot pass up. After thinking about it in great detail, and then talking to the right people and talking to people who matters to me, because this decision doesn't only affect me personally, of course, it affects a lot of people as well. Whether it's the organization I'm with, or my family, and so on.
Right.
So I just felt that at some point, I just have to do it, and it's probably a one-time chance for me to contribute.
And exactly, because you have a lot of experience that you bring with you, and we need people like you up there as well.
Yeah, hopefully that matters. And of course, there's a lot of, with government work, there's a lot of different gears that you need to turn and so on. But hopefully, with the little bit of experience that I have accumulated over the years, that can contribute even more.
Definitely, inshallah. Thank you very much, Brother Syazwan. We'll get back to you on this, where you can maybe share a little bit more on that. So, Ellisha, just a little bit, so we all know, being in this space, doing this work, it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard effort. It's being, of service to others, and you don't necessarily get a pat on the back, but we try as much as possible, all of us together, to support one another. But if you can share with us, how tough, has it been for you, and maybe if you can share some of the challenges that you have gone through, and how do you then, turn these challenges or struggles into impact?
Yeah. I think firstly that, it has been a rewarding, a journey, but at the same time, the struggles that I faced through, I think firstly, individually, right, even making the decision to pursue this career itself, that's a whole, again, I don't know, it's like a professional stigma, like why would you want to go into this this career path? It's not financially rewarding, again, like you said, not even sometimes socially rewarding, there's not much recognition. So I think that is something that I had to overcome myself. So, particularly when I changed career about 10 years ago, just having that steadfastness, like, okay, whatever people say, I know what I want to do, just quiet down the noise. So that's one individually, but I think even from the coming into in I think the more of the system, I think a system that is overburdened, under-resourced.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's so very new. It's still at its
It is.
infancy. So it's like three different things going on at the same time, right? Not enough funding, but at the same time, not enough resources, and stigma still very high.
Yes.
So I think that's the other part that
Challenges you?
yeah, that really challenges you, because if it's just stressful work, you know, but you have the resources, everybody would be able to just kind of problem solve it. But this is working with constraints.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is where creativity comes in a lot. And the social connection.
Yes.
So these two parts, I think, has helped me to overcome a lot of the struggles that you cannot do this work alone.
Yes.
You need to have that connectedness and that collaboration, collaborative spirit with the rest. But also the creativity of knowing that you face a lot of these challenges. Like going into the, I was sharing, going into the community. You think when we go to the community, offering something that is useful for them, but they're not going to welcome you with open arms.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and this is where ensuring that we have good open and good communication, and understanding the needs of the people that we serve.
Definitely.
So first and foremost, what do they need, and how do we deliver it in the way that they are receptive and they understand?
Right.
And I think that has really in a way, those struggles actually taught me and my team at Thrive Well, right, to really look at co-developing every service or program that we do.
Yes.
Do a needs assessment, and then we co-develop it together.
Right.
Like they say, not shots sendiri lah. They
Betul,
think
betul.
that, no, you need this, but actually they don't.
Right. I mean, it's so important. It's such a crucial point, because there's so much disconnect, right? Even for us, people with lived experience of a mental health condition, right? What is provided versus what is actually needed. So that needs assessment is actually crucial.
Yes.
Like you said, kita pun tak nak shock sendiri. But what do you think, Ellisha, if you may share, because you come from the corporate world, some experiences or things that you bring from the corporate world that has helped you in this journey with Thrive Well?
Yeah, I think my experience with corporate world is, again, we need a lot of structure. I think monitoring and evaluation is very important.
Yes.
In any services or program that we deliver, and we are currently working with a lot of corporate partners as well, right? So I could summarize it simply that they say, okay, when you do an intervention or service,
Okay.
Symptoms are reduced, all good for the individual, very good. But what is the impact?
Right.
Yeah, are they going to school? Are they going to work? Are they less, interpersonal violence in this person's life? So I think that's where we need to have a more systemic way of looking at it, not just, yes, an individual needs it, but how do we link it back to reducing the social barriers? So what are those social barriers that these people face? So that is something that I feel from those conversations, right? In a way, when you put kind of a corporate framework, we identify issues, up front. We project manage it rather than, because I think when you say treatment, a lot of mental professionals will think treatment's always this for this person.
Yes.
But you need to think this person lives in the system.
Right.
There's the family, school, community, workplace.
Betul.
So I think that's probably what it was much easier for me to grasp coming from a corporate world, because we do everything project manage, working with multiple stakeholders, but not necessarily in the I find that not necessarily in the mental health industry. So I think that's where I bridge between the people in the mental health as well as people outside of mental health, because I think to be able to make a change, we like I said, the collaborative spirit, not just within the mental health industry, but externally
To
as
actually
well.
understand it from a broader perspective as well, and like you mentioned, understanding about the social determinants of health, how that's important, and how mental health isn't just a healthcare issue, but it's a social justice issue at the same time. So thank you very much, Ellisha. So coming back to you, Syazwan, maybe just to elaborate a little bit more on what you shared earlier. Tell us a little bit more of this new role that you're in. How does that role that you're in right now, how does that create an impact, and what can we all look forward to in this new position that you're in?
Well, I'm being a political secretary to a minister, and this ministry, I might add, is the National Resources and Environment Climate Change Ministry, which is very relevant to everyone. It is not just relevant to everyone now, it's also very relevant to everyone in the future, so future generations and so on. That's what it change the way we see the world, and the way we use resources and so on and so forth. And therefore, being the political secretary to a minister in such a large scale ministry involved, in getting to know the issues and getting to know the people who are involved behind it, whether it's a corporate, NGOs, because everyone has a role to play in terms of how we kind of use the resources we have available in the world.
Right.
Whether corporate using energy, or how do we have in terms of water security and energy security and so on and so forth. So these are things which are that the ministry is looking into to ensure that future generations are well protected in these areas as well. So being a political secretary again to the minister involves me just making sure that I engage the right people, get the right input, meeting the right stakeholders in order to understand their issues and their problems as well. Because if you just recently, for example, I went to Terengganu and Kelantan to meet some communities there who were affected by the flooding issues, for example.
Of course.
And of course, flood goes back into the issues of, for example, heavy rainfall, but also the geoscience conditions over in Kelantan.
Of course.
And the weather conditions, and also whatever projects that develops there, the logging issues in Kelantan and so on and so forth. So everything is interrelated, everything's intertwined somehow, and everything has an effect on people, whether it lives there or future generations who worries about their own future.
Right.
So we've been able, at least I've been personally I've been able to meet a lot of people, whether it's NGOs or and NGOs in this ecosystem as well, those that care for the environment, those that care for the climate change and so on. They are very passionate about what they do. They truly believe in what they do, and they are smart as well, very factual. They hold on to scientific evidence when it comes to all of these things. So it requires me to also up my game and learn a lot more about all these issues, and read a lot more about the arguments put forth by different people, and just understanding as well the context locally, how it affects the communities and so on. So in terms of what you can expect from the minister and the ministry, we truly believe in affecting change, positive change.
Yes.
We want people to be to feel secure about their own living situation. We want them to feel secure about, for example, the water security issues. There's a lot of issues in certain states in Malaysia when it comes to water security. Enough treated water, or even water reserves and so on and so forth. So these are things that we are looking into, and we want to ensure that these are brought forward with the right regulation and having the right foundations to support our goals. So hopefully, because this is still a learning stage for us, it's a learning phase for us, but we are already right in there, right in the mix to affect change. So you can see more developments over the next few months, hopefully.
Okay, that sounds like a lot that you have on your plate, but help us to understand a little bit more. So we talk a lot about climate change, of course. I think every single day we hear something around that topic. As Malaysians right now, in your new role, maybe you want it from all your learnings, maybe a little bit, what can we all do right now to make a change?
Well, it is, as much as we want to say it is an individual effort, everyone has to, create a lifestyle that, or live a lifestyle that protects the environment.
Don't travel as much.
Yeah, travel is fine, but if you can, some people say collateralize that with some carbon offset efforts, plant a tree or something like that, or reduce food.
People are cutting trees, building houses, building buildings.
That's the problem, right? So there's a lot more. Actually, when we do campaigns, and we put a lot of this responsibility on individuals. But when you look at the bigger picture, it also involves a lot of corporate abusing, I would say, to an extent, the resources that we have. So that has to change as well. Right? It has to change from a policy standpoint, but it also has to change from corporate practice standpoint. Of course, people are talking about UN SDGs and COP 27, 28, and so on and so forth. So these are things which are put in place to ensure that everyone toes the line, everyone works towards greater positive changes in climate change and so on and so forth. But whether it's greenwashing, whether it's just all symbolic and so on and so forth, those are things that we need to really drill down. As individuals, you can do as much as you want yeah, I mean, and when I go into composting, for example, reduce your food waste, reduce your carbon emission. Personally, use EV cars or take public transportation and so forth. That's really up to you guys as well, and up to every individual involved. But again, it has to come from my personal standpoint. It has to come from a larger group of people, stakeholders.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you very much, Brother Syazwan, for sharing that. Hopefully, we can all play our parts to at least, slow down that process. And don't harm this world that we're in. We want to make it a safer place, for the future generation and the generations that follow as well. So thank you very much, Brother Syazwan, for sharing that. So Ellisha, back to you. So you, as a clinical psychologist, specialized in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and also Adlerian psychology. So maybe you can briefly tell us how are these two therapies helpful for people that are going through the recovery process?
Well, okay. It's actually an approach that I've learned throughout my training and cognitive behavioral therapy, which means the thinking and behavior.
Right.
Really, it's an evidence-based treatment that is talk therapy that focuses on most of the psychological problems arise from our unhelpful thinking patterns.
Right.
And these unhelpful thinking patterns then are linked to the negative emotions that we experience, and also unhelpful behaviors. So essentially what this talk therapy does is trying to change, to manage the psychological problems to changing our unhelpful thoughts and our unhelpful behavior. So hence, always focusing on how do we, skills and coping skills on how to change these thoughts and behavior to then be able to manage any of these problems that we face.
Okay.
So that's one part of it, which is the individual, right? So, but again, we live in particularly in Asia, in Malaysia, we are connected to society.
Yes.
And we have a lot of these thoughts, but these thoughts are often influenced by, our society, family, and all that. So that's where Adlerian psychology influence comes in. It's not particularly a psychotherapy per se, but it's an approach, which I actually mentioned earlier on, where when we look at the individual, the health of the individual actually resides in the community.
Okay.
So about 70 or 80% of our well-being is actually related to things outside.
Right.
So as much as you want to change your thoughts on behavior, but in the environment, all the way from climate, from policy, from workplace, community, schools, family, don't change, together, then that's when, the individual will feel very helpless. And we see this a lot, in particular in our work in the B40 communities.
Correct.
They're actually very resilient people, but the adversities that they experience are just
Too much.
And that's why they always say that, I go back to my usual. But actually, they are trying to change the behavior and thoughts. So I think this is what we developed the service earlier I mentioned, right? That's a form of the treatment is there. But how do we adapt it and adjust it to the limits of the individual living in that community? So I think that's a very important approach that sometimes as practitioners, I have to say, especially in my early years, right? So now you're like, okay, just do this clarity and all good. No, then it happen. You need to look beyond that. So I think for both of these approach only works hand in hand, and we always ensure that. And then another part of it is not just putting the like what Syazwan said, right? It's not just individual responsibility. Yes. You cannot just say, okay, you have this particular problem you're facing, and you change your thoughts. Right? It's it's everything. You're bringing other, the family and the community in as well. So I think that's a big part of our approach.
I think that's really interesting because, people that go through all these struggles, imagine that trauma, that environment, the family, society, and everything put together, and you just reduce all that complexity, everything that they've gone through to biology. Okay, let's go. Here are the meds. Let's just do therapy and that's it. You're done. Yet, when there's so much digging, there's so much that you need to understand, and for them to understand, then we're not enabling recovery in that way.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ellisha, for sharing that. Also, maybe an additional question, because a lot of people when they come, they say, "Can I take CBT when I'm in this situation?" What is your advice on people that want to seek therapy, particularly CBT, since you're
Yes. I think I would say, and then first, with anything, we go by first, you realize you need to realize what you're going through first.
Okay.
And this is where the assessments or evaluation comes from. So please then go, see a medical practitioner, because sometimes psychological problems can also, be another problem of a physical condition. So when you see the psychologist, again, the assessment will help you to understand what is the situation and what is the recommendation of management.
Right.
So I wouldn't even say like, oh, you must be CDP. It's really based on that point in time, what are the individual's needs, and look at what evidence, again, what scientific, right? Maybe for this particular person, then a good indication would be going to a CBT treatment. But for some, it may be other psychotherapy, other forms of talk therapy. So I usually shy away from saying, oh, CBT is all good. That does that. It has a lot of evidence in common mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, but also severe mental illness. But go back to what is that you need, and friends, that's why speak up. You have the professionals that will be able to recommend, and it could be a combination, like you said. Medication alone may not work for some. So medication and psychological and social, and spiritual. I think these 4 aspects need to go hand in hand, in ensuring more sustainable wellness. I think it's not just about treatment, but sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. So at the end of the day, it must be a holistic approach for a more effective recovery for everyone. So thank you very much, Ellisha. We coming back to you, Syazwan. If you can backtrack a little bit, during your time with DLFP, the Lost and Food project, because MIASA we're still involved with DLFP a lot. It has been very helpful for us because we're now able to provide a lot to the B40 community, the homeless folks, which we do, a lot of outreach programs with. Maybe a little bit about your experience with them and what made you, started or your interest in being involved in such initiatives, and maybe some of the challenges, Syazwan, as well.
Sure, I think the Lost Project is a great organization. Just couldn't see it. It's an organization that tackles an issue from a different perspective. I think we always have people in B40 communities who are hungry, and at the same time we have a surplus amount of food. I mean, the disconnect between the disconnect between the two is just unbearable to an extent, because although we waste so much, we still have people who are just unable to consume food. Some of the beneficiaries that we provide to, when I was with the Lost Food Project, they consume the food maybe once a week or twice a week at most, proper meal. Otherwise, it's just little nitbits here and there. So it does create a kind of situation where we have a solution. It's just a matter of how do we coordinate that. And then when I came into the Lost Food Project, it was already at a stage where it was quite established. It's just it needed a bit of a strategic direction from that point on. But the concept was there, and I've always known the founder even before she started the Lost Food Project, Suzanne. And when she asked me to join a few times before I actually joined, I was in the situation where I was already working at a different organization, a corporate organization at that point of time. But then there's an opening again, and I felt, okay, this is the time that I can really go in and contribute, bringing on all my experiences working with the Selangor state government and so on and so forth. So I went in, and COVID immediately started, I think about 3 to 4 months after I joined. So it became a situation where I had to kind of maneuver through this different predicament with the organization that I just joined. But through again networking, working with the right people, meeting the right stakeholders, and the support is always there. It's just a matter of how to coordinate that. And I think we were able to grow during that time, and we are still growing now, and helping a lot of people on a daily basis. But again, with food security issues, with food surplus, you have to ask, when does it end? You can always provide food, you can always provide daily, but when does it reach a point where people can be self-sustaining, when they can have access to this quality food and without having to rely on organizations or other individuals and so on. So again, that is a systemic issue. It's a problem of a much larger scale, actually, from a policy standpoint, from the supply and demand standpoint as well, from even business and corporate and food production and so on and so forth. So a lot of these issues, eventually fall on these B40 community members of society. Unfortunately, for them, that a lot has not been done. But I think it's picking up. People are starting to realize that the solution is stand with the right people, put in the right places and so on. So I think hopefully we can see more drastic changes, because it's very much needed, especially because of COVID. We've seen how vulnerable people get during that time.
Thank you very much, Syazwan, for sharing that. There's more to be discussed on this topic for sure, but we need to take a break, and we will be right back on the Game Changer.
Hi there. If you're watching this, you probably care about change. And one of the ways to make the biggest changes is to take care of our mental health. If you want a safe space to share and grow with others, consider our circle time and peer support. If you want to express your emotions with your creative side, why not try out our expressive dance, speech and drama, or even art classes? If you need help figuring things out, processing your emotions, or support with your mental health challenges, our counselors, clinical psychologists, and spiritual therapists are here. If you want a snapshot of your mental health, come in for our mental health screening and assessment. At MIASA, we care for you and we want to be there for you. If you're having trouble figuring out where to begin, contact us and we'll help you get started. Because you matter.
Welcome back to the Game Changer. We are still in conversation with Ellisha Othman and also Syazwan Rahimy Mokhtar. So coming back to you, Syazwan, maybe a little bit more on our previous discussion on, talking about the Lost Food Project and people, the B40 group, poverty, hunger, that's still a huge issue, and that's why it's still part of the SDGs. Maybe a little bit more, Syazwan, if you can elaborate, because, being MIASA, when we do our outreach programs, especially for the homeless, specifically in the Chowkit area, hundreds of people come, every single time. What can we do better? How can we help? What do we need to do to alleviate that one? How do we reduce these, people that are hungry, people that don't have places to live? What can we do more?
I asked myself that question, to be honest with you.
Right.
I went through that whole phase where every day I got calls from people who are
exactly
in need.
Yes.
They are hungry. I get calls from at 12 o'clock at night or 3 in the morning,
Betul.
or wake up every morning at certain points during COVID, especially wake up with 3 or 4 text messages asking for food for their children.
Yes.
Why my baby doesn't have milk,
Betul.
had any meals for 2 weeks. I lost my job and so on and so forth. I think the real question is, when do people, when will people realize that it's not just a matter of these individuals not being able to feed for themselves and so on and so forth, but also, what about the issue of, basic salary being at the right point, because, we're talking about living wage in KL being over 3,000 ringgit for families, but, minimum wage is about 1,200 ringgit and so on. So when does that policy change? We talk about food prices soaring at some point, and it affects everything, prices and so on and so forth. So everything is connected somehow.
Right.
So when we talk about alleviating the stress of these people, as much as we can do, as an organization, as an NGO, there's a larger picture out there. There's a bigger player that has to affect change, and I'm part of that now.
Yes, you are.
The ministry. Of course, my ministry doesn't necessarily deal directly with humans. A lot of it is, whether it's water, whether it's natural resources, environment, and so on and so forth. It naturally, of course, goes back and
interlinks, of course.
Everyone, right? But of course, this has to be, again, it's a collective responsibility.
It is.
It is everyone in the government. It's everyone, every stakeholder. It's the corporate. It's the community leaders, and so on and so forth. I think I realized at some point, during that whole period of me helping the poor and with through the food bank and so on and so forth, that we have, as much as we can do, there are people out there that we just cannot help.
Yep.
You know, we were helping.
Can't save everyone.
We can't save everyone. There's about 10,000 people that we were feeding at some point a week.
Yes.
And they continue to do so now, the Lost Food Project. But there are many out there, many more out there that we just couldn't reach out to. So it requires everyone to be involved, everyone playing their role. And again, I go back to this because I think it's the most important part. It is policy, it is education, it is, you know, the people who are in charge at the higher levels to that makes changes that matters.
Right.
You know, us on the ground in the organization, as individuals, as mental health experts and practitioners and so on, we can help 1% at a time.
Yes.
It does help.
It does.
So I know it helps because I've seen how 1% having a single meal a week,
Yes.
at least that keeps him alive.
It does.
It's inspired to then be motivated. And the same thing with what I'm doing now with Maaedicare. We provide dialysis treatment at a very subsidized rate. We just opened up 2 new free clinics in Ipoh and Jalan Ipoh.
Congratulations. Thank you.
So these are things that matters. The moment we shout it out, we see people lined up outside the clinic to get their treatment, because even a single treatment costs about 60 to 90 ringgit, and these people just couldn't afford it. So hopefully we change one life at a time. But at our level, but the people who have more influence to affect change, we can push them and advocate for better change.
I think that's so important. People that are in position that can make that change, please do your jobs so that we can create a better world for everyone. And I think that when we talk about all these different things or various things that during the pandemic hit, the conversations just it was just everywhere, and suddenly it's died down quite a bit. But hopefully it died down because a lot of people are doing things that matter. This is what we're hoping. But maybe Ellisha, going back to you, we talk a lot, or ThriveWell talks a lot about being or you put an emphasis on being trauma informed. At MIASA as well, we do talk a lot about the trauma-informed approach. We get our volunteers, our crisis team to be, trained on that as well. Maybe if you can explain to those that are watching and listening in, why is this approach important and what is it all about?
I think with trauma-informed care approach, it's basically a framework for any human services. So it's not just for mental health. It could be for education, for healthcare, social work. And any even human resources, right, of corporates, because they deal with humans in general. So I think to sum it up, it basically looks at instead of always putting earlier on my example, right, I'm on my experience in Australia, where the housing officer, instead of saying, okay, this girl had a meltdown, something's wrong with her. So she's actually saying, what happened? Asking that something must have happened to you.
Yes.
So I think reframing that, rather than, okay, there's something wrong, to something happened to you, then you understand that this individual probably have faced more adversities. Because again, if it's just a housing, even if it's the fact that I didn't get housing, I don't think I would have had the meltdown. It was just, okay, bunk in with a friend, right? That's what we do in uni anyway. But the point is, there was a lot more that was happening there.
Yes.
So if we put this lens in the development and delivery of all human services, we will always ensure that we put the individual in that situation where they get the right service that they need.
Right.
And I know this can sound like, wow, so idealistic, be very expensive. Not necessarily, because first, I think we look at most individuals live in a community, and in a community there's similar situations that they go through.
Right.
So for example, the B40, they are all going through similar adversities. Each PPR is unique, obviously, but at least 60% of the problem is common. Not so unique. Maybe 40% is unique due to many circumstances, but that 60% is what we work towards. So understand what is the like the most common problems that they face. So you build some form of realization of what they need, and then we recognize, right? So when we recognize, is that we look at what does this adversity cause, so or trigger, and then we know how to address it even before the services is provided. So needs assessment is such, what kind of support from the other NGOs or stakeholders that we need to bring in. Who are the right stakeholders? Not all stakeholders are right sometimes.
Of course, of course.
Sometimes we'll be like working with one, we're like, not really, so maybe we need to figure that out. And then finally, when you respond more effectively. So rather than trying to save the world, we've all been there, right? Trying to save everyone, but then we become more effective, because it's more targeted, and it addresses their common problems first. So when you address the common problems, then you're left with the individual, more unique problems, which then the specialists can come in.
Betul.
Yeah, so then at least the specialists are more effective as well. Then the generalists can focus on what's needed overall. Then that's where the last part is kind of resisting the traumatization, meaning whatever service that we develop, we ensure that it's less likely that this person will go through the experience again. And in the long term, it actually saves costs, economic costs,
Of course.
and better outcomes. So you will see in most organizations, in the West that has adopted the TIC approach, they've seen improve in health, education, social outcomes, and reduction in the cost. Because you hire, like as an organization, you hire the right people for the right level. So for example, I'm a mental practitioner. I'm not going to see a person with just a common mental health disorder because my time is better used in a specialist treatment, but I can have my my other team members to be able to support that. And this is where MIASA as well, right? Your role in the first, what we call the realize and recognize, is very important. Because that's what commonly everybody experiences.
That's right.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of a summary of our TIC.
Right. Thank you so much, Ellisha, for explaining that. Syazwan, maybe just to add on to that, when we're working with the poor, the B40 underprivileged, and of course as a society, we're judged, on how we treat these group of people, right? The most marginalized, the vulnerable groups, etc. Maybe you can share with us, because I know you're still with Medicare at the moment, and I've spoken to a lot of people, a lot of our peers here. Many are not, fully aware of the work that Medicare does. So maybe you can share with our audience a little bit more so that we can connect them with Medicare if needed. Sure. Yeah.
I think Medicare is a great organization. It pains me to leave. Difficult.
I'm sure.
I do need to work full-time.
You can't do everything. Yes.
Take my methods.
Right.
But I think it's a great organization because great support as well. It provides highly subsidized, affordable healthcare to the poor. So it has been in existence for over 28 years, primarily doing dialysis care. So the dialysis centers all over Malaysia, I think 11 centers throughout. But then they've also ventured into cardiac diagnostics, again highly subsidized. If you look at the packages that they provide for full health screening, for example, you'd be surprised how we can still sustain operations, but there are ways to do it as well. And then there's also free clinics, opening up free clinics. We just launched 2 free clinics in Ipoh and also in Jalan Ipoh. So
Ipoh and Jalan Ipoh.
Ipoh and Jalan Ipoh.
Wow.
And they plan to open up 14 over the next few years.
1-4.
1-4.
Wow.
Free clinic. So it's a very new concept. It's not really necessarily new concept, but it's, I think the first one in Malaysia by an NGO, where it is a proper health clinic, like any GPs.
Right.
It's just that you go in and register yourself, consultation, medication, without having to pay a single cent. So anyone is welcome. Of course, we target B40, so we try to target B40 community densely B40 community areas. But anyone can come in. But if you think that you can afford a bit, of course you're welcome to donate, because it is sustained on donation. Donation. So these are things that we want to try to do a bit more as well. And Medicare is trying to reach out to more people, to more partners. So if anyone wants to send over anyone that needs, primary healthcare, it's very, there's a simple GP, but if you have any issues like fever and headache, you can go to Clinic Psychologist, for example, but sometimes it takes a while. And appointments for minor surgeries can take months sometimes, and it's a load on our healthcare as well, because the number of people who uses, I think over 60% uses government clinics and government hospitals, and it takes a toll on the resources that they have, and the resources that they have. So we try to provide an avenue, a solution for people who are not able to wait 2 months to get treatment. Even for our cardiac diagnostic centers, for example, angio treatment, or even to do ECG scans.
Actually, that's a lot. You can do a lot, actually.
Yeah, angioplasty, angiogram,
wow.
CT scan, X-ray, and everything. There's, welcome to our facilities. You can take a tour and visit what we have there. So you don't have to wait. For example, in government clinics, sometimes even a CT scan can
Right.
up to 6 to 8 months.
Right.
With Medicare, just register and probably you will next few days get already.
Wow, nice. I think that's a great effort because it eases the burden of the health systems overall. So thank you so much. So those of you that maybe need help, at subsidized rates, you can, walk in.
Yeah, okay, walk in.
What are the operating hours like?
Okay, so it is normal working hours.
Oh, okay.
From 8 to 5,
5?
usually, but for the for the free clinic, we do it at 9 to 1 because we do not want to also.
That was what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, because there are also other clinics. And,
Betul.
we do not want to disrupt the market.
Right.
for them as well.
Exactly.
And
Got it.
And also, it allows them to also to continue the businesses without being affected by by some.
But do you get long queues though for the free clinic during that 4 hours?
At the moment, yes, not bad. I think what we aim for is around 4,000 patients per month per clinic.
Okay.
So right now we're seeing the numbers have picked up. People have started to, because we literally just opened up last week.
Oh, okay.
Seeing numbers are picking up now, and then the queues are a bit longer. But again, we still welcome anyone to come in and get treatment. Of course, it's 9 to 1. So so hopefully we can at some point open up more clinics so that more people can have the avenues to go to.
Nice. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Syazwan, for the effort, and of course to the whole Medicare team. Thank you so much for this great effort for us Malaysians. Okay, Ellisha, I think as usual we don't have much time left, but maybe a little bit more on your involvement and observation on what you have witnessed. This maybe past 10 years, particularly in the mental health space in Malaysia. What was it like 10 years ago versus what we've seen today? Of course, this is something. A place or a situation where we've never witnessed in the sense where the pandemic happened.
Yep.
So this is a little bit different. But what do you think? How is it different today and versus what you've seen 10 years ago?
Well, I think it's significantly improved, in the sense that
Tremendously.
Tremendously. I think 10 years ago, to just talk about, mental health. I mean, people know psychology in general, but even the word psychology itself stigmatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, when actually psychology is not just mental health. It's there's so many other things. We're like, okay. But I think that has changed. I think one with the universities or training providers, right? There's a lot more universities putting in emphasis in the training because we need that, right?
Yes.
The more people we train, the better quality and service and number of people providing that. Secondly, the stigma definitely that has reduced dramatically. I think the pandemic definitely helped the cause because now every single person has some form of experience, right? So not necessarily you're in a very severe state, but you have an experienced state.
You have a glimpse.
Yeah,
of it.
so it's very real. So it's no longer just what we used to hear 10 years ago. Oh, it's those people.
Yes.
So I was like, those people are us. It's not those. It's us. So now I don't have to explain that too much. And I think what we're seeing from the policymakers as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a big receptiveness to incorporate mental health, not just in the healthcare. I think outside of the healthcare, and I think that's the biggest achievement. I think in terms of these 10 years, because if you just keep it in healthcare, then again it remains very treatment focused.
Yes.
But what we need is again the prevention and improving all the other services, right? Like even climate change has a correlation to our mental health. Whenever there's haze, oh my gosh, all of us get really stressed out. So I think that is I hope that it will lead to more investment. I think not just donation. I think we have to move away from that real investment in the infrastructure.
Yes.
So I think that the time is right now that we are building the mental health industry infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah, not just about treatment, but across the board.
Yeah, exactly. Community development. Really want to talk about that and focus. But thank you so much, Ellisha. So we need more investment. We see we're normalizing it.
Yes.
We are hopefully prioritizing it.
Yes.
But we need the investments to come in, and this is what we're hoping for. So thank you very much, Ellisha, for that. And Syazwan, with you, how do you maintain your mental health? You explained you've got a lot going. You're a husband, you're a dad. There's so much that you're helming at the moment. So what do you do to take care of yourself?
I try to. It's more of a personal thing. I'm very interested in a lot of things, whether it's music, arts, sports. So I get involved in a lot of good things. Whether it's playing music,
Okay.
like playing guitar. I try to do it every day.
Nice.
Back for to sleep or something like that. Just to at least tune myself into a different environment, different element. And then I do paint as well, and if I can run, I'll try to run daily if possible. But right now,
Wow.
I'm more weekly.
Tell me your schedule. You can run, you can paint, you can play guitar, you can work, you can be a dad, you can be a husband. Okay. I don't know how to do that.
I just do things when I feel like doing it.
It sounds like every day though.
It's almost I try to, but painting I've kind of put that aside for
Oh, okay.
because of the work that
Load.
Ministry work, the load is just tremendous. So I'm adapting to it. Once I think once I use
Yep.
the scheduling and everything, I can go back to my just the regular program.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a lot of that. I do go to therapy as well. There are times when I feel down, and there was a time when I was actually quite depressed as well.
Right.
And I realized I do need help, and I went through the whole session, and
Yep.
I've been a bit too busy to follow through with it. But I do realize that that's something that helps
Of course.
tremendously,
Yep.
and it motivates me to get back up and things that I need to do.
Right. And be on track as well.
Exactly, because it gets overwhelming as
Oh, it does.
with all the work and the things that you need to juggle
What
at
a-
home and
It's like,
it's not like I don't have any personal
Yep.
issues and personal problems, attending to other people's problems.
right, exactly. Right. We don't like a grumpy dad and a grumpy husband, okay? If I may add.
Again, I think everyone experiences the same thing. I just am privileged enough, and I acknowledge that I'm privileged enough to be able to seek help. And I think it's very important that people do seek help. that
Yes.
People do go back to the experts for this
Yes.
type of stuff. And not reading things off the internet or
Right.
2-minute video of TikTok. It
Yep.
really doesn't do much. I think
Right.
might help you for a bit, but then you realize that you do need something a bit more
Further help, yep.
long form format. So I think that helps. So I know I do like
Great.
to be idle and not do it.
Yep.
So I think just
Thank you so much, Syazwan, for sharing that, because what you did just now, that was a lot. Men's mental health is so stigmatized.
Yes.
We talk about that a lot, daripada kecil kan, boys don't cry, man up, if you're a leader of family, you don't struggle, you just keep it in. And then eventually that 24/7 suicide hotline, everyone calls in. MIASA's 24 crisis helpline, so busy because all the men are calling in, crying, they're going through all these issues. So thank you so much, Syazwan, for being vulnerable, for sharing that, because there's no shame. And at the end of the day, like Ellisha mentioned, we all struggle, just different kinds. And, some people are just good at hiding it, better than others. But of course, at the end of the day, the pandemic happened, we all went through that. It's a lot to really, experience. So I think this is the time, this collective effort, everyone, normalizing these discussions. And really, there's no shame. Please don't be afraid to seek help. Help is available, everyone. And again, there's help that is, subsidized. Even at MIASA, we provide free essential services for the B40s. And of course, we have our government, clinics, hospitals, and of course, places like Thrive Well that you guys can go for to seek help. So maybe one last closing. Okay, Ellisha, maybe your hopes for 2023, and then Syazwan, silakan.
I guess the hopes for 2023 is that more sectoral collaboration.
Yep.
Because again, mental health is not just in healthcare. I think we do need a collective effort to improve the social, when I say social, education, social services, all the basic needs of, what we need to be human.
Yeah.
I think if we focus on that, invest in that, build the capacity of the resources in that, we will be able to be more resilient regardless of, whatever that's to come. And we know that there's always this global recession coming and whatnot.
Yes.
So I think we need to prepare ourselves and really building that
must.
infrastructure in 2023.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much, Ellisha, for sharing that. Syazwan, silakan.
I think for 2023, personally, I would like to, of course, learn a lot more what I'm doing. In the ministry, it's a very new thing. I want to be able to affect change as soon as possible, as much as possible.
Yes.
But of course, I think education is a very important aspect of this, and I think that's not being stressed enough. Educating ourselves or educating others and educating communities on things that we can do, whether it's on mental health issues,
Right.
it's climate change, whether it's food waste before, or even healthcare and so on and so forth. Being able to educate one another, I think that's important. I always thought that something that we need to bolster a lot more is on education. I think 2023 can be a point where we start to do that as a collective, and give voice and give platforms to organizations and NGOs that matters, like Well and MIASA definitely, even Maaedicare, there was also projects and so on that I've been involved in, and many other organizations and NGOs that I've worked with or collaborated with before, and it continues to amaze me, the things that we are able to do here in Malaysia. The people that we have here, the resources, the talent, and everything being put into good use, and people with passion, and these people need their voices heard.
Yes.
And as part of the ministry, I welcome a lot of, and the minister as well, we've welcomed a lot of NGOs into our meeting rooms and our offices, and we will continue to do that. We want to engage as much as possible, and as many people as possible, and people, of course, with good intentions to create change.
Definitely.
So I want to see a lot more of that, a lot more education, a lot more engagements, and of course, to working towards providing solutions to our issues and problems.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Syazwan, for sharing that. Both of our panelists just wrapped up our show for this week. Thank you so much, Ellisha Othman. Thank you so much, Syazwan Rahimy Mokhtar, for all your insights, and I hope for the same. For the year 2023 will be the transformation that we are all aiming and striving for. So we want to promote action, all of us. It's a collective effort, guys. So we need to work and move towards that, inshallah. So thank you so much for those of you that have tuned in till the end of our show today. We hope you gained a lot of insights and beneficial knowledge from our two panelists today. And for me, as usual, I learned a lot from the both of you. So thank you so much. Hope to see you guys next week only on The Game Changer.